Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Ability Podcast. I am your host, Nick Earhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, so Jenn, before we get started on the interview, I want to make sure that I have permission to use this content anywhere that I like and I own it.
Yes.
All right, now we'll get started. All right, everyone. So I'm excited for today's guest. Her name is Jenn Fredericks, and I know she's going to share a lot of value with us. And I know that even me, I'm going to learn a lot from her. So, Jenn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, on the professional side, I am a personal resilience practitioner and a ProZilience coach or proactive resilience coach. And my focus is on supporting patients with chronic illness and their family caregivers to build their proactive resilience for the marathon of life with illness.
Awesome. And that's extremely important, because when you have an illness, it really took obviously a toll on yourself, but your family too, and friends and whoever's around you. So can you talk a little bit more about how exactly you help your clients?
Sure. Well, first of all, I bring my 3 decades of experience living with a chronic illness to my coaching and workshops and podcasts and speaking engagements and writing. I'm a 2-time kidney transplant recipient. I had my first kidney transplant at 16 and my second one then at 2012. So I have a lot of experience navigating the healthcare system as well as learning how to support myself so that I can really live the life I'm working to heal. In 2015, I added the role of caregiver to my resume as my daughter was diagnosed with a low-grade brain tumor when she was 7. And we've been managing that fairly well for 9 years. And during some of that journey, I realized that maybe I didn't have as many tools as I thought I did to support myself and to live a life of wellness, even when dealing with illness. And so I moved out of my corporate marketing career, became a coach, and really started to learn how to live in the present moment, how to appreciate and be grateful for that I do have, as well as helping people move out of fear and uncertainty when dealing with these types of life challenges and have more confidence and contentment and calm in their life. And I do that through sharing mindfulness techniques, ideas on how to be present, and then also using a framework that was developed by an industrial and organizational psychologist named Linda Hoops, all based on her research of resilience for 30 years. And it's called ProZilience. And it talks about building your proactive resilience so that you have the strength and the support and the capability within yourself to face challenges before you even experience them.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that. And I know that when you have a positive mindset and you're trying to think of the positive outcome, that helps you with everything in life. So I'm right there on that. I like that a lot. And
I can tell that by your podcast episodes I've heard and just by being in your energy and presence.
Thank you. It's, personal development, it's the long game. It's not something that you fix right away. It's something that you can work on every day for the rest of your life. And I'm on my 4th year, and I just keep getting better and better. I used to be very negative, especially towards myself. And I've learned to accept who I am and love myself. And because of that, my whole life is way better than it was before. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. And just also want to share and invite everyone to remember that even though we can be working on and looking at how to experience life better, how human it is of us sometimes to fall back into some of the patterns that maybe are a little bit more limiting and not as enjoyable. And so it's great that, you bring up the point that this is the long game, This is
Yep.
doing those small things every day to help support yourself throughout your life. And that's one way that I really like to help and teach people is get some of these ideas and practices into our DNA. So it just becomes a natural response versus us really having to think about it being an intentional reaction. It just becomes part of how we show up in the world.
Can you give us an example of the strategy you use?
Sure. Well, when I started 7 years ago in personal and professional development as a general life coach, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and uncertainty about how to support my daughter through her illness and diagnosis. And then, the things that come after that you aren't even really aware that are going to happen, like emotional, mental, and behavioral things. Literally to be present, to practice being present, I intentionally breathed for 3 months. So as an example, maybe it was an argument we started having about what's happening for dinner or whatnot. What I learned was by being present in the moment and taking care of myself through breath and really activating my parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest phase, I was able to be present with my daughter or whoever in a stressful situation and not spiral out of control myself. And as I practiced breathing for 3 months, it started to just become second nature to me. So if I experienced a trigger of some sort or there was a stressful event, I just naturally started to do that intentional deep breathing that would activate my parasympathetic nervous system that would allow my wise mind to come online so that I could have better decision-making capabilities and personal interaction capabilities. So that's one of the things that I did that is super easy and is available to all of us because breath acts as a pause button for our brain.
Yep. Absolutely love that. I do breath work every day. I have to multiple times a day. I literally have reminders on my phone throughout the day to pause and breathe because, well, one of the major causes of illness is lack of oxygen. So if we can just get more oxygen into our bodies, that's going to help a lot. And then, you know the benefits. It can do so many different things. Like this morning, for instance, I was tired. I I was up a little too late, and I was just tired this morning. So I'm like, all right, time for an energetic breath work. So I did it. It's about a 6 minute breath work, and you breathe very aggressively for like half that time. And when I got done, I was like, all right, let's go. Like it felt like I took an espresso, like that type of energy. Like it's amazing how just breathing can really help you out.
It truly is. And I didn't even know at the time because I wasn't aware of the proactive resilience or the ProZilience framework. But that aspect of breathing is actually one of the first building blocks of ProZilience. That block of being able to calm yourself and self-regulate as you're facing life adversity and challenges. And so I was already, a couple steps ahead on that building block by the time I discovered ProZilience, which I was very grateful for, so I could start practicing the other building blocks as well.
Yeah, let's talk more about ProZilience because I love that name. I love that word. So I want to learn more about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're all familiar with resilience, and sort of the traditional definition of that is when you face life's challenges or hardships and you fall down and then you bounce back or you pull yourself back up. And that's all great and all, but I was hitting so many of those life's challenges that I was using so much energy to pull myself back up again and again. When I discovered ProZilience, I realized that we can actually catch ourselves before we fall. So we don't have to use all of our energy to pull ourselves up to get to our benchmark of where we were living and how we were living and how we wanted to live, and then possibly even grow from there. So ProZilience is actually intentionally building your capability to deal with life's challenges before you encounter them. And there are 4 building blocks that you can practice. And you can actually come up with a workout plan if you want to practice these. And those include 1, as I mentioned, calming yourself. 2, choosing a strategy with which to meet that challenge. And there are 3 different strategies that you can choose and or mix and match them. Those strategies include reframing, or taking something that looks and feels like danger and find a way to look at it that gives it a more positive meaning and that allows us to have some possibility to move forward. We can change the situation sometimes, do something to make it something more we'd like it to be. Or one that I really practice a lot is accept what is and adapt. So understanding that this is what's happening. How can I adjust myself to the situation that I may not have control over and that I may not be able to change, but our power lies in having control over our response. So those are the first 2 building blocks: calming yourself, choosing a strategy. Once we choose a strategy to meet the challenge, then we can work on problem solving using our resilience muscles. Within this framework, there are 7 resilience muscles that we can use to support ourselves to move through challenge. Those include positivity, confidence, priorities, creativity, connection, structure, and experimenting. Now, we're all born with all of these muscles. Some of them are just easier for us to access during moments of challenge without, draining our energy. Now, the 4th building block, and my favorite, is talking about managing energy. Energy fuels human resilience. And there are 4 energies that we can manage for ourselves, including physical energy, or using the body to get things done; mental energy, thinking clearly and quickly; emotional energy, knowing how to work with difficult feelings without draining ourselves; and then spiritual energy, or that connection with a sense of meaning and purpose that's larger than ourselves or outside of ourselves. For some, it could be religious. For some, it could be coming up with our value statement or a mission statement. And now all of these forms of energy are interconnected. So when we can identify the level of energy we have and where we might be having some leaks, we can plug those leaks and then be intentional about refilling ourselves so our energy can fuel our resilience.
I'm with you on all of that, and I actually learned a lot. So thank you. I actually can't wait to re-watch this recording because I gotta go through this and dissect it for myself. So thank you for that. That was amazing. And then, as an experienced coach, do you have any tips for other coaches out there who are just getting started?
Of course. And again, these are things that I remind myself of daily, like even this morning. As I had mentioned to you before, I've been getting over an illness. And so I had spent 3 weeks really of not doing any work on my business or coaching. And sometimes you feel like you fall behind. Sometimes you feel like you may not have the skills that you need in order to help other people. What I try to remind myself and invite others to do is remember that we all have everything that we need inside of us. And we can access that if we just take the time and we're gentle with ourselves and remind ourselves that we are here to help others with our special gifts. And no one else can define that for us. So the more we can look inward and discover who we are and how we want to show up in the world, the more we can help others. And it's really just about believing in yourself. I know that sounds corny, but like believing in yourself and taking that time to do the strategies that we're actually sharing with our clients. It's important for us to always do our own work first so we can support others in the most beneficial way.
Yep. And a lot of that goes along with, living in the present. When we're worrying, we're worrying about something in the future, something that hasn't happened yet. So instead of doing that, let's focus on where we're at now, where we came. I love doing that. Look at how far you've grown. and how far you've come. Because a lot of times, especially us entrepreneurs and coaches, like you said, you feel like you're falling behind. You feel like you don't have the tools to keep going. But if you could just pause and maybe journal about where you were a year ago compared to where you are now, it's going to excite you because you're going to realize how much you learned and how much further along you are.
That is so true. And I love the point that you brought up about present moment. And this is especially important for entrepreneurs and coaches, but also for those that I support, chronic illness patients and family caregivers, about being intentional and mindful and present where we are. Now, here's a quick story of when I was going through coach certification. One of my colleagues, we were talking about mindfulness and presence, and she mentioned a statement that has just stayed on my heart forever, and I share it whenever I can. And that's to remind yourself or invite yourself to be where your feet are. Whenever your mind starts to worry and wander to the future or look to the past, just invite yourself to be where your feet are, exactly where you are, feeling exactly how you're feeling, and accept those things, because that's what allows it to move through us and propel us forward.
Yep. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I can say I can relate to you. You said that, you had an illness, so you didn't really do much with the business for like 3 weeks. Well, actually, I did the same thing. I took about 3 weeks basically off, and there's still the daily tasks that have to get done. But I was just at a point where I needed to step back, take care of myself, so then I can show up better for the people I'm trying to help. So I did that. Now, I will say by the end of it, I wasn't feeling great because I wasn't taking care of my health. It's holidays, you eat the crappier food, all that. But then at the end of it, I was like, all right, time to go. So now I'm feeling great. This week, I gotta share this because I'm pretty proud. This week, I lost 5 pounds in 4 days. Pretty pumped about that because over the holiday break, I gained about 6 pounds. So I'm just about down to where I was. So I'm pretty happy about that. But it's okay to take a break. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. It's okay. Now, I know as entrepreneurs and coaches, and when you're a caregiver even, it's hard to take a break. But if you can find that time for yourself, and it could just be a half hour a day, an hour, whatever, just find that time for yourself so you can heal and recover from everything that's going on in life.
I agree with that, and I love that point. It's actually, there's a resource on my website that I offer for family caregivers that I know that we're talking about self-care here, and it's important. And I think it's important to be very intentional about how you practice self-care. And so the resource is actually called You Can't Self-Care Your Way Out of Caregiver Burnout. And it really directs people back to that idea of the 4 energies that we do have some control over. And when a lot of people think about self-care, they think about, oh, I need to schedule time for a massage, or I need to blah, 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 right? And that can be folded into the physical energy part and managing your physical energy. But it's that important point about all forms of energy being interconnected. So like you did when you weren't feeling well, or I did when I was not feeling well, I took time to replenish my physical energy and plug any leaks. Some of the leaks that were taking energy away from my physical aspects were working too much. So taking that break, stepping away, plugging that leak, and then refueling myself by reconnecting with why I do the work that I do, and looking at that spiritual energy piece to help fill the physical energy piece. And so if anyone's interested, on my website, there is that resource talking about the 4 energies and giving some tips on how you can support yourself and those interconnected energies.
That's amazing. And what is your website?
I probably should have chosen an easier spelling for my website, but it's called ProZilienceCoach.com. So that's ProSilience coach.com.
Awesome, awesome. So everybody listening, please go there right now and get the help that you need. And then I would love to talk for a few minutes on caregivers, because I do have cerebral palsy.
Mhm.
I've had family members and friends that have acted like caregivers my whole life to help me along with the tasks that I need. What are a couple tips that you can give caregivers to maybe make things a little bit easier or less stressful?
Sure. Well, I just want to acknowledge and say that you've already modeled that for the listeners when you were talking about breath work, finding that way to bring yourself more energy. As a caregiver, it's also very important to be where your feet are. A lot of times we're draining our energy because we're thinking too far ahead, more in the worry aspect, rather than what's happening right now. How can we support ourselves so that we can support the person that we're caring for? And then I also think it's very important for us to remember as caregivers that spiritual energy piece. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? How does it bring us joy and energy? Can we focus on that and not just on the pieces when we're physically tired or emotionally drained or mentally our head is going in 10 different directions on what appointments, medications, therapies need to happen for our loved one that we're caring for. So that's exactly why I like to introduce the ProZilience framework, because it touches on all of the ways that caregivers can support themselves. I like to actually also ask people, like, try to determine the life you want to experience and lead while you're doing this. Why are we working so hard to help someone else heal if we ourselves aren't healing or we're not able to enjoy being with that person?
And you just made me think of something. You have to take care of yourself first. You have to. You cannot help other people as well if you're not taking care of yourself first. It's just like when you're on the airplane. What do they tell everyone? Put your oxygen mask on first. And that carries through your entire life. Take care of yourself first and then help others.
And people will say, caregivers will say, well, how do I do that? Or I don't have the time. There's not enough time in the day. But there's also that idea that sometimes we need to slow down to move more quickly. And so, as you said, take that pause, take care of yourself first, quit giving the excuses, just do it. Because if you don't, you aren't going to be there to support your loved one.
And I know from my own experience, now everybody's different, but I'm just going to tell you from my experience, is there's a lot of caregivers out there that will help too much. So basically what I'm saying is you might be doing more than you need to do because you're trying to help. But sometimes that's actually going to hurt the person you're helping more than actually help them. There's, like for me, there's a lot of tasks that I can do on my own that are, obviously more difficult for me. So sometimes people just like barge in and just do it for me.
Yeah.
Now that's not something that needs to be done. Every now and then it's appreciated because some tasks I can get, a little irritated with because it takes a little longer or it's frustrating. But there are times where you may not need to help someone and they could actually help themselves. So just maybe take a look at your day-to-day tasks with that individual and see if there are any tasks that you might not have to help with on, If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in it. stuff next to your heart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that is so important. And as a caregiver, sometimes we don't think about that. We only think about how much can I show how much I care by doing these things for the person I'm caring for, when in fact, it's most important, like you said, to sit down with that person and truly ask and truly listen to where you can be of service.
Yeah, talk to them and see if there's anything that you do for them that they might not like. And, also have a good conversation with them, because let's face it, sometimes people are just lazy. So let's make sure we're not taken advantage of. That's a big thing. I've been taken advantage of. I've taken advantage of others. I may have asked for help when I didn't need it. Something like that. So let's make sure that we're not being taken advantage of. And if you're out there listening and you have someone that helps you with stuff, make sure you're not taking advantage of them, because they're putting their heart into you and their time. So please appreciate that as much as you can.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. All right. Well, we're getting to the end here. So I would love to ask you, my slogan is, your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
My goodness. It means the sky is the limit, even when we feel like we have limitations put on us. I'm on my second kidney. I could have stopped. I could use it as a crutch. My daughter, with her diagnosis, has a lot of difficulties. She could not engage in life, but she does. And so I think it's just a wonderful slogan and reflection on the potential of the human spirit and what we all have available to us if we want to take hold of that and really go forward in life and live the life that we're so lucky to have here.
That was incredible. Don't let your circumstances define you and define your life. Make your life what you want to be.
Mic drop.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yep. There you go. All right. Well, Jenn, this was incredible. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for offering this platform for your listeners and for us to come and guest on. It's truly a wonderful contribution to the world.
Thank you so much. This episode of the Infinite Abilities podcast is brought to you by the one and only Infinite Toolbox, where just like all other toolboxes, we will get the job done, guaranteed. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to save time, boost revenue, or automate your processes, Infinite Toolbox has got you covered. With powerful tools designed to drive leads, expand your reach, and gain your industry secrets, we help you work smarter, not harder. Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Visit us at infinitetoolbox.com. That's infinitetoolbox.com. And discover how infinite your potential really is.